Morning, everybody. Thank you for joining. We'll begin with chapter 49, verse 5. Chapter 49, verse 5. Yaakov has begun speaking individually to each of his sons. The first son he spoke to was Ruvain, and it's generally understood. Pachas kamayim al tosar. He says to him in verse 4 that you've been acting rash, like how water flows. That's how you've reacted, and you're not going to get extra. And that is normally understood as being a statement to him that he will not have the birthright. And this is traditionally understood as being a reference to what he did in switching the beds of his father and into a tent that he thought was appropriate. So that more or less was Reuven. And now we have in verse 5, Shimon v'Levi achim. Shimon and Levi are brothers. Klei chamas mecherosehem. Their tools are tools of, Reath is a good translation here, pretty strong. Besodam al tovo nafshi b'kolam al techad kvodi. My soul won't come into their confidence. Their gathering, my honor will not come. Kivapam hargu ish v'irtzonam ikru shor. In their anger and will, they've killed and uprooted. Verse 7, Arura pam ki oz, their wrath is cursed because it's too strong. Vevrasam ki kashasa, achalkem b'Yakov afitem b'Yisrael. I will spread them out among the Jewish people. Okay, so there's a lot of interesting things to think about with this, but I just want to focus on one phrase. Yeah, I know Shimon and Levi are brothers. Actually, every person you're referring to in this exchange is going to be brothers because they're all your sons. So why does it have to say? There's clearly a meaning here in saying that Shimon and Levi are brothers. What's being brought out by that? So let's start with Rashi. Rashi on Pasuk Hey, Shimon v'Levi achim be'etza achas al Shechem v'al Yosef. They were in cahoots with each other regarding the story of Shechem, punishing Shechem for taking Dinah, and regarding Yosef. Now, Shechem, we know. Shimon and Levi went and killed the residents of the city. We get that. What's the reference with Yosef? So it says in the pasuk, "Vayomru ish el achiv." One person said to his brother, here comes the person of dreams. Let's kill him. Now, it's funny, when you look at the pasuk that one said to his brother, actually the way probably many of us would understand the pasuk is it means each one turned to his brother and said as follows. But Rashi is bringing down a pshat that when it means what it said, one said to his brother, is there were only two people who said, let's kill Yosef. Remember, that was the initial idea, to kill Yosef when he approached the brothers. And those two people were who? So Mihem, who's the one? One of them said to his brother, Im Tomar Ruvain or Yehuda. If it was Ruvain or Yehuda, Rei lo hiskimu barigaso. Doesn't make sense because Ruvain was plotting this whole thing. Let's get him in the pit, and the Torah says he was hoping to get him back later. Yehuda had the idea of selling him, so it's hard to believe that Ruvain or Yehuda originated the concept of killing Yosef when they were the ones who created alternatives. It's unlikely that it was the children of the maidservants. It's very interesting. I don't know how much we spoke about this at the time, but it seems clear that there were sort of two, forgive my terminology, two classes within the children of Yaakov. That the children of Rachel and Leah had more of a prominence than the children of the maidservants. But says Rashi, it's very unlikely, that the children of the maidservants were involved in this, because part of the description of Yosef at the very beginning of the story is that he would spend a lot of time with the children of the maidservants. So if anything, they should see him as one of them. Yisachar uzvulin lo yimudabrim v'nei achim agdolim. So now we've really narrowed it down. It's not Reuven, it's not Yehuda, it's not the children of the maidservants. There's only four more possibilities. Yisachar and Zvulun were on the young end of Leah's children, so it's very unlikely that they would make this whole push. So who are we left with? Al Korchach, Shimon v'Levi. Shekroam Aviam Achim. It must be Shimon and Levi were the ones who had the idea to kill Yosef. And now when you think about it this way, the word Shimon and Levi Achim comes to a whole different meaning. That you have a way of being in cahoots on things. One place it's explicit in the Torah, one place it's implied in the Torah. And the implication that there were two people who were involved with the idea to kill Yosef is that one said to his brother. So this, according to Rashi, is a subtle connection to the pshat in that pasuk. So that's what Rashi says Yaakov is saying to them, that it seems whenever something happens that's too far and too much, it seems to be stemming from you. And that's why I curse your anger. That's Rashi's pshat. Let's go on to the Ramban. Shimon v'Levi Achim. Yomar Balei Achva. Ramban says something very different. Ramban says they are people of kinship, of brotherhood. Ki yecham libam al achosam. You know why they killed the city of Shechem? Because they cared so much about their sister. That's why they weren't looking to kill people, but they were very upset and they needed to make right by their sister. What spurred them on, says the Ramban? A feeling of kinship, a feeling of responsibility for their family. That's what it was about. Yilamed aleim schos, says the Ramban, that Yaakov is giving them he's trying to present the positive angle of what they did. The reason they did what they did was not because they were meshugayim. The reason they did what they did is because they were very upset about what happened to their sister, and that's a good midah, that they care what happens to their sister. Lomar she'ein ru'im la'onesh gadol v'lo achet roi limachel ki hu chamas. Really interesting. Says the Ramban. It's all in this first pasuk. On the one hand, they're acting with a sense of brotherhood, and therefore they shouldn't get a terrible punishment because they meant very, very well, and it was coming from a good place. On the other hand, they can't really get forgiven because what they did was Hamas. What they did was so strong and so beyond the pale. So on the one hand, there's a perspective here. On the other hand, it's totally unacceptable what they did, and it can't happen again. Achim Gemurim. But the Ramban says what I think it really means when he says Shimon and Levi are brothers is they're completely brothers. Domim u'misachim ze lo ze va'atzasam u'ma'aseyam. They are, what do we say? Two peas in a pod. Their ideas are on the same page. Their actions are on the same page. Kvar Pirashti says, the Ramban have already explained, Yaakov Kotzaf al Shimon v'Levi, b'hargam anshe ha'ir, ba'avur she'asu chamas. Yaakov was not happy with what Shimon and Levi did for killing all the people of the city. Ki heim lo chatu lahem klal. What did the people of the city do to Shimon and Levi? You want to be upset in Shechem and Chamor? That's okay. What does that have to do with the people of the city? Uvo babris v'nimolu. You asked the people of the city to circumcise themselves, and they did. They were willing to because you asked them to. V'ulay yeshivu el Hashem, yukulam b'chlal anshe beis Avraham, min hanefesh asher asu v'charon. Remarkable. Says that, normally the way you understand why Yaakov is upset at them is because it's bad politically for the region, and we've certainly shared that idea before. The Ramban says he's upset at them because, my gosh, these people are so ready to change as people. They were willing to have a bris. So maybe this is going to be the new generation of the of the monotheism movement. Avram did so much. Avram and Sarah did so much. As a nefesh asher asu v'charan, they inspired so many people. Maybe this is going to be the new way. Maybe this whole city is going to accept monotheism. What did they do? They did nothing to you. Shechem and Chamor did something to you, and you go and you kill them all. What are you doing? That's what the Ramban says he's saying to them. V'od haralo shelo yomru ki ba'atzaso na'aseh hadavar v'yechil Hashem sheyaseh hanavi chamash v'shod. Excuse me. Separate point. Yaakov is the person who's representing monotheism in the world right now. Okay, these are Yaakov's sons. They're all together as a family. What's the average person on the street going to assume? That if Yaakov's sons came and killed the city of Shechem, it must be that Yaakov thought it was a good idea. So it's not only that they did something wrong, it's that they're impacting his world reputation. And again, he's not concerned about his reputation because he wants to be on the cover of magazines. He's concerned about his reputation because he wants people to believe in God. V'zetam b'sodam al tavo nafshi, says the Ramban. That's what it means when it says, my soul will not come into their secrets. Hisnatzlus, shlo haya b'sodam ba'anosam b'mirma. He's separating himself. It's sort of like a comment for the record. Whoever's going to read this later, they had a treacherous plan and they didn't share it with others. It was so dumb. It was their secret. I didn't have anything to do with it. And I wasn't involved with their congregating, meaning in body, when they got together to kill the city. I wasn't there. I wasn't in the mix. And therefore he curses their wrath. It's a very, very interesting Ramban. I think it gives a little bit of a broader lens on this story. One more thing to see. Let's see the Sforno. Sforno on Pasuk Hey. Achim. Vaya kavod ha'roi l'Ruvain roi lahem naflo mimenu. Sforno has a totally different shot. The Sforno says, Yaakov just got finished explaining that Reuven's not going to have the birthright. Okay, so who will have the birthright? Well, who are the next people up? Shimon and Levi are the second and third sons. Sforno says what he's saying is they're achim, they're brothers to Reuven, and you might think that they would be the appropriate recipients of this birthright. He says, but it's not going to happen. I'm not going to give them that right either, because they were involved with acting with wrath. Therefore, it's not appropriate for them to have this role. So sorry to spend so much time on one phrase. I just thought it was interesting to have a range of ideas here. So again, just to repeat, Rashi says Shimon v'Levi Achim means you were the brothers who always plotted, whether it be against Yosef, whether it be against Shechem. The Ramban says Shimon v'Levi Achim means I commend you. I commend you for your emotions and for caring. And the reason you did what you did with Shechem is because you really cared about Dinah. You were really living like brothers to your sister. You happened to make a terrible mistake. And that's the problem here. But I understand where it was coming from. And the Sforno says he's explaining, you might think that they got the birthright because they're the next brothers. They're not going to get the birthright. Okay.